Elden Ring is such a beautiful game. And while most people know about the earth tree's beauty and power, I am more interested in the humble flower. Can I defeat my foes by showering them with gentle petals? Can I present a boss with a beautiful bouquet and ask them nicely to let me pass? In fact, can I beat Elden Ring with flower power only? Let's quickly go over the rules. I can only damage stuff with flowers and flower-based products. That means any weapons and spells that are called flower, blossom, bloom, etc. And while every rose has its thorn, I will not include thorn sorceries in this run because I don't have the pretty petals. But Panda, you may say, if you have a weapon that deals damage, of course you can beat Elden Ring with it. Yeah, hold that thought. Finally, no plants were harmed in the making of this run. No flowers were harmed in the making of this run. One flower was harmed in the making of this run. I chose the Prophet starting class, named her Marigold because it's the most red panda-looking flower I could think about, crossed the fog to the lands between, realized that my carbon footprint is way too high and tried to commit Sudoku to save the environment. It didn't stick. While I'm on my way to touch some grass, let's review the selection of weapons we have for this run. In the base game there's actually only two, Varre's Bouquet and Hoslow's Petal Whip. The latter drops all the way in the mountaintops from Juno Hoslow. This guy. Thankfully, the owner of the former is already here to greet us at the very beginning of our journey. As always, I allow myself to use a few basic attacks to acquire my first source of legit damage for the run and... Oh. Oh no! So it turns out you can only get Varre's weapon if you invade him in Mogwin Palace. And to even reach Mogwin Palace, you need to defeat at least one shard bearer, so you can complete Varre's questline and receive the Pure Knight Blood Medal. Pure Blood Knight Medal, which, having no valid way to deal damage, I'm currently unable to do. So, is this it? Is the run over? No, scratch that. New plan. Thankfully, weapons and spells are not the only sources of flower-based damage the game gives you access to. Meet my beautiful children, Marina, Marilyn, Mirabella, Morticia, and Meredith. If you travel all the way to Kaelid Catacombs, you can pick them up without fighting a single enemy. These sweet little carnivorous Miranda Sprouts cost 185 HP to summon and have a grand total of 2 attack types: Vigorous Headbanging and Chemical Warfare. I only need to support and protect my children, while manipulating them into fulfilling the dreams I myself have failed to. But before my babies are ready to fight anything, there is prep work to do. I did the usual loop around the map, looting every graveyard inside because from death springs life, and the most beautiful flowers bloom from the bloodiest battlefields. Also, I needed money to level Faith. This is the reason we chose Prophet as our starting class. While my little flowers spew poison all over the boss, they will have to tank a lot of damage, and I need to heal them through it. I had no idea how much FP I would need to keep them alive, so upgrading my flasks was another priority. I planned to collect all the golden seeds in the lands between, and while riding through Limgrave, I came across the great Kenneth Hyde,
Me sucker!
who I knew was hogging a golden seed. He wasn't gonna part with it willingly, and I couldn't really ask my children to attack him here. So instead I chose to persuade a local group of nature-loving folks into beating up the greedy aristocrat for me.
Hello? 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 Watch out! Watch out! Watch out! Watch out!
I can't believe that worked. Miranda Sprouts are a pretty squishy summon, so boosting their health is another priority. They upgrade with Grave Glowworts, which is nice. We can strengthen our flowers with some other flowers that bloomed from the souls of the dead. How necromantic. With my Miranda Sprouts upgraded to +5, I was ready to fight Margit. Hold up. Why can't I summon? I forgot the fucking bell. A trip of shame to the round table hall later, we finally got to work. My plan was summon Miranda Sprouts, lure Margit into the flower bed of flatulence, then lead him away to the other side of the arena while the poison ticks away his health. Support with heals as needed. Despite having both the face tier and the face talisman equipped, I had little faith in the melee damage of my flower summons. And of course I didn't want his attention on them. This did not go as smoothly as I hoped. My flowers did well, poisoning Margit almost instantly, unless he jumped away. He could be passively walking towards me for ages, or delete a flower or two from my roster with a mega combo. After a few tries, I whipped out my trusty parry shield. Parrying Margit was the only reliable way I had to distract the old perv from my children. This worked as long as I didn't mess it up. In the end, he couldn't take the overwhelming flower aroma any longer, and me and my remaining 2 kids took the victory. The winning attempt took a total of 6 minutes and 40 seconds, which is probably the longest Margit fight I've ever had. Hope the next one's easier. I spent all my hard-earned runes to reach 25 faith, got a warm welcome into Stormwell Castle, dodged the second welcoming committee, and made my way to the most famous gardener in the lands between. Can't wait to witness this new grafting technique he pioneered.
Perfection.
Right at the start, I've noticed that Godric does much more damage to my summons than Margit ever did. At this rate, my basic heal spell would never out-heal his damage, and its range is too tiny to cover all my summons in one cast. Second thing I've noticed while leading Godric away from my children is this. Did you catch that? So, turns out to compensate for their low mobility, FromSoft gave the Miranda Sprout summon this nifty ability to teleport to your location whenever they are off screen. Which is funny, because keeping them in range of the boss is the last thing you want to do when the poison is already taken. I tactically died in a completely intentional manner and added another support spell to my repertoire. Blessing's Boon. This is a large radius heal over time, which will help keep my children topped up while I'm away. With this spell, things went better. My summons have procced poison for the second time right before phase 2, and that's when it all burned down. Literally. There was just too much fire around, and flowers don't really like that kind of environment. My poor resource management didn't help, and my summons died before they could poison Godric for the third and final time. It was obvious we needed to get stronger to overcome literally the easiest remembrance boss in the game, so I took the Dactus Leaf to Altus Plateau to collect a bunch more golden seeds to maximize my heals and blessings casts, as well as a Golden Vow incantation, which buffs the defenses, and not just the damage for you and your allies. But the main reason I came here was Gelmir Hero's Grave. So actually you can upgrade a regular summon all the way to +7 without fighting a single boss. The 6 and 7 Glauvards can be found in this very lava hellscape. Did you know these archer skeletons had an arrow stab attack? I sure didn't. Having picked up the 6 and 7, I grew my flowers to +7. Finally, I bought the Great Heal spell from Corin and upgraded my seal to +12, as the amount of healing you get from your spells scales with the incantation scaling of the catalyst. Then, it was back to Godric. took us 7 minutes 40 seconds, and if you're wondering, the 1 pixel away from killing him thing happened 4 fucking times. 4. Now, with 1 great rune acquired, I got 1 step closer to Mogwin Palace and my first proper weapon, Varre's Bouquet. I went on my merry way to talk to Varre, but while trudging through the lakes, I remembered something. Back in my first playthrough, when I was exploring Liurnia, blissful and aware of how skippable 90% of this region is, I came across a man in mourning, clad in familiar armor and with a familiar weapon at his hip. Meet Dialos, Juno Hoslow's little brother. Normally you can get the petal whip from him at the very end of his questline in Jarbrook. Before that point, you only encounter him in the Round Table Hold or the drawing room of the Volcano Manor. But this tiny encounter in the lakes is very optional, very missable, and very much my only chance to get a weapon of him. The only thing I need now is to repeat the Cannot Hide trick and employ the help of the locals. This albinoric patrol proved harder to lure to the correct spot than the demi-humans. But after a few minutes of wiggling around, ladies and gentlemen, we've made contact. My new hires were also much more effective at bashing heads in. And there we have it, Hoslow's Petal Whip. Wait, I could have done that without fighting Godric with flower summons. I upped my dexterity to 20 and gave my petal a test drive. It does strike damage, which is great, but not a lot of it, so we'll need to upgrade it as soon as possible. And like any whip, it cannot riposte or backstab. Shame. Still bullies the Onyx Lord though. Upon making the whip plus 12, I decided to work on all the NPC questlines I need, including the Volcano Manor invasions, which are required to get the second petal whip from Juno Hoslow. Since I still needed to get the bouquet from Varre's invasion, all these other invasions helped me get some practice killing NPCs with the whip. I worked long and hard to devise a cunning and reliable strategy to run in R2. It's literally just run in R2. Now how do you like exploding into a cloud of blood, huh? Oh, except Eleonora. Having tried Bloodblade Dance in my previous run, I would not recommend any sensitive flower like myself to end up on the receiving end of that. There. Much better. Since this time I had a proper weapon for the run, I decided to actually fight Commander O'Neill, instead of introducing him to a bunch of fertilizer geysers. Isn't nature beautiful? Speaking of beauty, I armed Millicent with an arm and she invited me to a local hippie flower festival. Since I'd always wanted a flower crown of my own, I graciously accepted her invitation. But our date was rudely interrupted by Godskin Apostle, who didn't seem to appreciate the flower celebration too much. In fact, he looked rather bored. I quickly dealt with him and promised Millicent I'd come meet her mother one day, bringing her beautiful flowers, of course. Meanwhile, I've decided to go meet another single mom in my area. I heard she's lonely and overburdened with childcare, so I figured showering her with lovely petals was a great way to cheer her up. Unfortunately, along the way, I may have accidentally, not entirely intentionally, killed her dog. What? Do you know how many rabid dogs are there in that place? It's easy to mix them up. Anyway, she wasn't happy to see me and the petals did not cheer her up at all. That also may have had something to do with all those children I killed. With my pretty petal upped all the way to plus 16 and 2 great runes to my name, I felt ready to enter the capital. I wasn't ready. But, having witnessed the power of a single mother with a bunch of children fighting at her side, I had a plan. Go, my children! With the power of smelly flowers and a razor-sharp petal, I am invincible. I was not, in fact, invincible. Jokes aside, I really wanted the Miranda summons to carry this fight. It took me so many tries that I have eventually memorized the perfect stealth line to DTS's backside. The poor boss was so tired of our back and forth that he started bugging out on me. Like, this is still phase 1. What are you doing, silly? At some point I started getting this weird animation bug where I summoned ghostly flowers by drinking. Maybe that's exactly what happens when you drink too much, I don't know. Eventually though, the strat of poisoning DTS, then leading him away from my summons and whipping his horse worked. And while 4 out of 5 of my flowers died, that was a sacrifice I was willing to make. Not you, Meredith, you did great, honey. I leveled my health out of one-shot range, told this tall poppy to sit down, then made my way up the branches to Godfrey. I really wanted a fitting drip to go along with my flower power, and this branch is a perfect place to farm it. It is dropped by these guardians with flowers here, but the drop rate is only 1.5%, so I needed Godfrey's grace to make the run back. Never mind then. Oh, this is beautiful. Wait, how do I get back up? Wearing this garb drops your fire resistance into the negative, which is appropriate for a flower girl like me, but to compensate it also makes your flask heal stronger, like an extra sacred tier. Not that I would need that for gold free. See? This boss is easy! Anyway, now I wanted to complete my flower-loving look, so I farmed the festive hood in the hippie village and turned it into a lovely flower crown. Honestly, I thought it would be bigger. Why is it so flat? Finally, with all 4 talisman slots filled, I was ready to invade Varre for my second weapon, the Bouquet. I effortlessly made my way through Mogwin, used my children as distraction the second time, took my frustration out on some zombies, and made my usual loop to the swamp for double golden seeds. I also turned the nameless white mask into a nameless white husk. Get it? 'Cause I bled him. So you may have been wondering, how in the hell did I plan to kill Varre if summoning is disabled in invasions, and I wouldn't have had the petal whip if I hadn't randomly remembered that optional Dialos encounter? Well, there's a reason why the rules say flowers and flower-based products. There are a few damaging consumables that are made only from flowers. These are Giant's Flame Fire Pots, Freezing Pots, Spark Aromatic, and Poison Spray Mist. You cannot get ingredients for Giant's Flame without killing stuff, and the other 3 are very limited. Both perfumes require Miranda powders, which without killing Miranda blooms you can only get 16 of. So I had to choose between fire and poison. Freezing Pots thankfully only require Rhine crystal buds, and you can't replenish them until Consecrated Snowfield, but there's plenty just lying around in Carrier Manor. So all my available ritual pots are frost, and as for perfumes, I made a save file not to waste my limited resources and did some testing.
2 hours later.
To keep it short, thank Marika I found Dialos and his whip. The flower consumables plan was not viable at all. Let me demonstrate. I had 8 frost pots and 10 perfumes to work with. Frost is relatively easy if you lob the pot from the top rope, while Varre tries to send bloodflies to pollinate your flowers. You can reset frost with sparks, but it's easier to just wait it out, rinse and repeat. But the damage just wasn't enough. Sparks scale with dex, which I have 31 of, and Varre dodges it more often than not. My damage was not impressive, but worst of all, Varre heals. Twice. I tried poison next. It ticks for more damage, so the plan was to poison Varre, then run the hell away until it wears off. Well, it should have worked on paper. In reality, the cast animation was slow as hell, the poison cloud was tiny, and Varre didn't exactly want to sit in it and smell my flower farts until it procs. So sometimes I had to waste 2 perfume bottles just to proc poison once. Finally, I performed the ultimate test. I booted up the magic Elden Ring tool, disabled Varre's AI, and only allowed him to drink his flasks. Then I just watched the numbers.
Why? That's like Christ.
So it turned out, in theory, I did have just enough damage to kill him with these consumables under the following conditions. If I played perfectly and hit him with every single pot. If he didn't run or dodge out of any tick of the poison cloud, and if he didn't do this. Yep, Blood Dex also heals him. Upon this, I said fuck it and just used the whip. Anticlimactic, I know, but I didn't want to go insane fighting a goddamn NPC for a weapon drop. Speaking of which, now that the beautiful roses are all mine, it's time to find a worthy target to test them on. Wait a minute, it requires 24 arcane? I totally forgot about that. And I've been leveling Dex and Face this entire time. Well, even after liquidating all my assets, I couldn't reach the stat requirement nor upgrade my freshly cut flowers. Thankfully, I know just the boss that'll help me solve both problems. I picked up Somber 6 and 5 for later, as well as some smithing stones for my petal whip, then proceeded to spam Godskin Noble, which, despite my damage numbers, was going pretty well. Until it wasn't. One thing I discovered is that the Battle Whip easily reaches him from behind the pillar, which was like a flower in the desert of this grueling fight. With Noble dead, I upped my arcane to 21, grabbed a Somber 7 and lit the Grace before Rykard for later. Don't worry, I won't forget about him till the very end of the run this time. Now, the runes I acquired were still not enough, so I went on a killing spree. To achieve success in my small business of floristry, I traveled all across the lands between, defeating such exciting bosses as Crystallians, Earthtree avatars, including putrid ones, and performed such ingenious actions as leveling, forgetting my gold foul food, and upgrading my bouquet. Anyway, let's see what this +9 baby can do. Yeah. Just what I expected from a bunch of flowers. At least they have thorns. And it seems like Morgoth can't really handle getting smacked over the head with roses and drops on his knees eagerly and often. I wanted to finish this fight by thrusting my bouquet in his face, but he kept dodging my advances. Oh well. If Morgoth doesn't want my courtship, I'll give these roses to his little brother Moog instead. I don't want the other twin to feel left out of the joys of nature in his gloomy blood-soaked palace. But no, looking at my damage, I'd rather not repeat the mistake I made in my previous run and go fight Moog this early. No. I'll go to Malenia instead. I'm not joking, that's the plan. But I'm getting ahead of myself. On my way to Njal, I stopped by Juno Hoslow, the proud owner of another petal whip I wanted. Also, a massive coward who runs away from the lady coming at him with flowers. My petal was pretty good at catching him right out of his bloodhound step, and he could withstand only 2 rounds of my whipping. Petal number 2 acquired. Holy gladioli, these bats do damage. Okay, no more distractions, going to Njal now. Oh my god. That's gotta be worse than dying to Pinwheel, right? Let's just pretend we didn't see that. With my petals at plus 21 and plus 19 respectively, I bravely faced my favorite anime commander, Njal, and his knights. You might be wondering why I'm not using bewitching branches in this fight. Well, they look like they're starting to bloom and they're crafted from flower ingredients only, but they are called branches, and I decided to be pedantic about it for no reason whatsoever. Besides, look at what a couple petals do to Njal's boys here. As for Njal himself, he was pretty chill. I even dodged this undodgeable bullshit for the first time in my life, even though with my power-stanced whips I was mid-rolling. A few jump attacks and bleed procs later, the first half of Helix Medallion was mine. A little Albinoric slaughter later, and so was the second. Loretta took me a few tries. Just to clarify, I'm not a fan of whipping horses, dead or otherwise, but... you know, sometimes you just gotta. Anyway, I did the whip, she did the nay-nay, and then she and her horse went on to munch wildflowers on some greener pastures. Yes, both of them. Millicent reminded me that her mother was still waiting for my visit, so I made haste through Elphael. Time to face my nemesis, the hardest boss in the base game.
I am Malenia, Blade of Mikola.
No, not her. This thing. This thing took me more attempts than goddamn Malenia, and that was like my 3rd time fighting Malenia ever. To start with, my damage was garbage. I was floating in a lake of garbage that gave me tetanus, and the camera was the most garbage since Fortisax. I tried cheesing it with a whip from upstairs, but it wasn't reliable, and sometimes fire clipped me through the floor. And sometimes it didn't. Also, love that baseball swing, really refreshing. After, no joking, 2 hours of suffering, switching flowers and tactics, I finally killed this thing by respecking into Arcane and generously applying Blood Flame Blade to my bouquet for maximum bleed efficiency. You know, Millicent, I went through all that to get your rotten talisman, but it was just too much, you know. I don't want to date you anymore.
But this is where things end.
Wait, you're dumping me?
I would rather rot into nothingness.
I'm gonna date your mom instead. During my first attempt, Malenia and I kept whiffing our attacks. After I bled her twice and she waterfouled me to death in return, I realized that she's the kind of girl who prefers whips to flowers. And from that moment on, our dates went much smoother. I respect back into decks, infused my petal whip with frost for more status procs, and our courtship bloomed. My damage still wasn't anything to write home about, but frost and bleed procs compensated for that, and many of her attacks could be interrupted by my R1s. Also, I finally learned how to semi-reliably dodge waterfowl, and the petal whip had just enough range for me to run away if Malenia ever takes into the air after my attack. Good thing too, because in one attempt she decided to waterfowl 4 fucking times. 4. Phase 2 is just more of the same, except she becomes a little more bullyable. Oh, and I guess a clone attack happened once, and I, of course, dodged it perfectly. In the end, Malenia turned into a blooming Aeonia flower one final time, not knowing that my cold little petal is already on its way to her exposed back. No, don't shut me down like that. I thought we had something beautiful going on. Anyways, the real reason I went to Malenia this early was so I could do this. Granted, mine is not as cool as Malenia's, but a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And I really wanted a lore-appropriate kill on Rodan. Scarlet Aeonia does some physical damage on hit in addition to the massive rot cloud. So I had calculated that I only needed to rot him twice and just survive in between the procs. This incantation requires 35 face, which I could reach with the face note tier in my physic flask, and my FP bar wasn't big enough for 2 casts, so I needed to carry blue flasks. Okay, I may have miscalculated. Let me rot him one more time. Oh, my physic ran out. On the next attempt, I front-loaded 2 Aeonias just for the extra physical damage, and it was just enough to rot him into the ground. With Rodan pushing daisies all the way to the stars, I acquired a red calla lily and a swaddled baby flower to complement my gorgeous bouquet, and finally paid a visit to the Lord of Blood himself. I thought he'd be pleased if I bring him the flowers of his loyal servant, but he was still enamored by a twink in an egg, so I had to improvise. Varre's bouquet doesn't do any damage, even with 65 arcane, but that's not the fun part of using this weapon. Paired with Bloodflame Blade, it's a bleed machine designed specifically for Moog, and like any hammer, it's great at staggering him. Blood Tax works great with the Godskin Swaddling Claws, building up bleed and healing you up, which is also useful during the heal. In the second phase, when he starts flying around like an overexcited bumblebee and standing in the decidedly not flower-friendly Bloodflame, it gets increasingly harder to bleed and stagger him. But not impossible. Who am I kidding? This fight took forever, and the bleed procs were the only thing that made it tolerable. I do not recommend anyone to use this bouquet on anything if you value your free time and sanity. At least now, I could touch the darkness within Mikela and travel to the realm blooming with new flowers I could pick up. I'm gonna skip the part where I collect a bunch of Scatter fragments, although this time I also picked up the revered spirit ashes for my tiny Miranda sprouts. I wasn't sure if I ever gonna use them again, but I wanted my children to grow strong and healthy, despite the lack of sunlight in these lands. In Belrad, I also picked up the dried bouquet talisman. Rather appropriate. It buffs your damage when your summons die, so it might come in handy. Finally, I made my way to Scato Altus, whipped a kid who played with fire in the presence of gentle plant life, and reached Rao base. While there, I picked up the two-handed sword talisman with no issues whatsoever, admired the gorgeous sunset, and got absolutely blasted by jealous nature enthusiasts. But neither bugs nor Gundyr cosplayer stopped me from laying my hands on my prized specimen. Ash of War, the poison flower blooms twice. With this ash, my now plus 25 petal whip gets 132 poison buildup, 69 bleed buildup, and the ash itself inflicts 160 scarlet rot buildup. But that's not the fun part. If your target is already poisoned and or rotted, the ash will detonate those toxins for massive damage. And since my double petals do a metric ton of poison buildup, blowing stuff up with the poison flower blooms twice is baby easy. To make this build as disgusting as possible, I topped it off with one final talisman, Kindred of Rot's Exaltation, which can be acquired in the Seawater Cave from the double Kindred of Rot boss, also known as bugs. With overpowered poison flowers at my sides, it was time to fight the first boss of the DLC, Romina. Go, my children, suffocate her with your fumes, and then I'll blow her up. It does take a while, huh? Wait, she's immune to both poison and rot? So you're telling me that Malenia, goddess of rot, is not immune to either, but this random bug lady is? I blame Miyazaki personally. It's obviously due to her lack of feet. Alright, change of plans. Here, I've got a whole bouquet of flowers for you. I don't even see yellow. Thankfully, Romina's poise is as unimpressive as my damage, and she can bleed. At some point she tried to run away from my advances and got stuck and then unstuck in a tree. This threw me off so hard that I, well, threw. It's fine, I got her on my next try. On the next try. Oh, come on, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't just kill Romina because haha, I'm so random. Her remembrance can be turned into the pole blade of the bud, which is a halberd that scales mostly off arcane and does flat 55 scarlet rot buildup. Its skill, Romina's Purification, allows you to do this. Maybe don't try it against Dragon Mode though. The skill Connecting and the butterflies exploding all build up scarlet rot. So I rallied my flower offspring and unleashed more poison and rot than poor ancient dragon man could deal with. And not gonna lie, the numbers are satisfying. I hope this weapon proves itself against larger specimens as well. Among the gorgeous crimson flower fields, I killed the hippo to raise my Skidoo level a little more and to showcase the sheer scale of my tactical genius. Thankfully, I didn't have those issues with the big guy. Also, is it just me, or is this man-fly grab attack the most obnoxious thing ever? The way those flies cling to me, you'd think I have something other than the pleasant fragrance of flowers on my back. Wait, what? Anyway, time to introduce Bale the Dread to the bud. The poor fellow looks like he suffers from chronic pain from all those injuries, and I have just the naturopathic remedy he needs. To deliver the remedy, I will have to poke the patient with this huge, halberd-shaped syringe. Yeah. The damage was respectable, even though this specific halberd has just about one poke attack in its moveset, and the rest is standard damage. Bale, who is weak to pierce, did not give me many openings for a running attack, so I had to settle for this. Stagger on Bale is a huge window for basically any course of action you have in mind, and it was usually enough to inject the patient with the remedy. The scarlet rot inflicted by my pole blade of the bud depleted a huge chunk of Bale's health bar. Still, it wasn't enough to actually kill him, so I had to do it again. But after suffering a few stupid deaths by showing off, I changed my tactics a bit. I wanted scarlet rot to shine in this one, and the bud was not the only solution. I activated Godric's Great Rune to be able to light roll with the flower armor on. Considering how much it lowered my fire resistance, I was okay with that, but I didn't feel comfortable dodging the nuke with mid-roll. Since Since I absolutely suck at Bale Phase 2, my goal was to delay the rot as much as possible. That's why I didn't focus on staggering him as much as I should have, and I didn't target his weak spots as much. Generally, I just fluttered around him like a silly little butterfly around a particularly angry flower. I kept doing that until he had about 30% of HP left, and then when I staggered him, instead of riposting, I did this. Curing Bale, I finally got another flower weapon from Flory's axe, the Flower Stone Gavel. It's a hammer that does pierce damage, and its skill, Flower Dragon Bolt, debuffs the enemy's lightning resistance. It also deals 30% more damage against dragons. All of this would have been nice to have before the hardest dragon fight in the game. Upon this devastating discovery, I decided to put my frustration into something more productive, so I went and fixed Mesmer's disastrous automatic irrigation system. Hope it hadn't done any lasting damage. Can you see the problem here? Exactly, there's too much water. You gotta be careful with these things. If you overwater your flowers, they can start to rot. Of course, not all is lost. Flower rot is curable, and I have just a solution. See? Cured! I switched to my Flower Stone Gavel so I could squeeze some oil out of the sunflower, and because it's nice to have a ranged option for this boss, especially when it gets the zoomies. Don't worry, nothing bad happened to this poor neglected flower, I just replanted it. Yeah. See? It looks much healthier now. With Shadow Sunflower Blossom acquired, there's only one thing I need for this run, the incantation aspect of the Crucible Bloom. Thank you, Miranda Blossom, for graciously showcasing it for me. For giving me a shortcut back to the Grace. Now that I've collected all my flowers, time to go back to the base game and steamroll some optional bosses while barely meeting the stat requirements. Fighting 40 at range is so satisfying. No chasing them skinny legs, reliably hitting the head, and Flower Dragon Bolt even shreds 17% of that monstrous 80% lightning resistance. Flower Stone Gavel is indeed a great anti-dragon weapon. Time to water my flowers and add some fertilizer for good measure. There is such thing as too much fertilizer. Well, at least the boss here is not shite, right? Right? For this one I chose the weakest of my weapons, Varre's Bouquet. Astel can bleed and he staggers pretty well, and I never really struggled with this fight. First try every time. Finally, let's make sure I don't forget about the snake boy this time. Not the red-headed twink, the other one. For Rykard Phase 1, my strategy was pretty simple. Now, I don't like fighting Phase 2 melee, which is why I chose to rot and trot. I'll spare you the whole montage, but just know that for like half the fight my screen looked like this. Another first try. To continue our theme of extinguishing all things giant and fire, I returned to the main progression and gently showered the fire giant with my triple status petals. Then I showed him the beauty of ancient dragon flowers, and he wept tears of joy as he knelt before the majesty of nature. At least I think it was joy. I couldn't really tell with my back flowers covering half the screen. Melina showed up and suggested we commit a cardinal sin together, to which I obviously agreed. If I knew she meant burning a tree, I would have said no. Well, there's no going back now. I made my way through Farum Azula. Please don't ask how I lost my rune arc here. Yahoo! Oh for fuck! And reached the mandatory gang fight. For the Godskin duo, I decided to summon my Miranda Quintet to serve as a distraction, a meat shield, and a poison dispenser, while I flew around spreading scarlet goodness. Poison and rot worked well against the fire giant, so it should work against these fire clowns too. Turns out it's me. I'm the clown. Who's on fire. And so are my children. Who would have thought that having both Godskins poisoned, dropping into their second phase and actively chasing you was a bad idea? Not me! This was the longest and stupidest Godskin duo fight I've had in a while. I honestly would rather fight them without summons and just using the normal pole blade of the bot attacks. In fact, I would have tried a different weapon altogether if I hadn't killed them on my first try. Okay, now I have extinguished all the fire menaces and we can move on to the more pleasant encounters. Since my new DLC flowers have pretty potent weapon skills, I wanted to lay my hands on the Shard of Alexander, which boosts them by a whopping 15%. With Alex's consent, I firmly planted my flower in his pot. No wait, that sounds wrong. What a gorgeous view! I wonder what's in the eye of the tornado over there. A dragon. There's a dragon inside the tornado. You know, whenever I witness something as majestic and peaceful as this, I feel like a petal at the mercy of a storm, floating unharmed by all its might, only because its capricious winds will it so. Abort, abort, not peaceful at all. Thankfully, we have just the weapon we need for this job. Placidus Axe is weak to pierce, has no extra lightning resistance, and is a dragon. What do you mean neither a dragon nor an ancient dragon? What is he then? A dog? In any case, blasting and smacking him with the very flower, his loyal servant, brought me the pleasure of irony I had been missing since Moog. Another optional remembrance for my collection. Speaking of dogs, on Malekith I wanted to check if the rot inflicted in Phase 1 continues sticking into his Phase 2. It does not. Well, that was a waste of a stagger. Our good boy here forgot to eat his veggies and level vigor, so basically anything except holy damage works well against him. Besides, I'm now much better at this fight. Ignore that. Having woken up in the ashes of my own sin, I walked into the empty room where I fought Golden Godfrey, only to hear someone monologuing at me. Oh, there you are. I knew the sunflower was giving me Smoke's hammer flashbacks, for more than one reason. Gideon tried using my own Scarlet Ionia against me, but eventually I proved to him that while a man cannot kill a god, a sunflower definitely can. Unlike that pathetic fellow, Godfrey is a phenomenal fight. Unfortunately, before he transitions, he can easily be cheesed with range. That was kinda boring though, so I did the regular flower smacking as well. I also wanted to test if you can fly over his arena-wide stomps with the bot skill. You cannot, which is honestly a shame. However, when he turned into Horalu, I think I lost some of my shame, and a few IQ points along with it. Guess I just couldn't resist getting bear-hugged and thrown around by a steaming hot shirtless man, so I kept getting myself cornered with nowhere to run. You know, Horalu, we had a fun date, but I'm not letting you walk all over me. This is goodbye. Before we move on from one shirtless man to another, we still have the DLC to finish, and I decided to start with the Dancing Lion. I was definitely overscheduled for this fight, but that didn't stop me from failing my first attempt. Yeah, I did the hippo thing again. Turns out lions are herbivores. Who would have thought? Let's just start over, shall we? Thank you. This time I didn't bother with Romina's purification and started by just rotting the lion with my Scarlet Ionia, after which I smacked him with my pointy butt to lower his health some more, and then I realized something. It's a lion. I've got a whip. Speaking of circuses, here's me being a clown again. I wanted to exploit the fact that she's standing in water most of the time, which lowers her lightning resistance. Flower Dragon Bolt shreds it even more, and the red lightning will spread on the water, catching Rolana even if she tries to dodge it. Most of the time. Better keep away from her when trying this. In the second phase, she was impressed with my long-distance courtship enough to show me her twin moons, and I wasn't disappointed. Sadly, after a few more flowers from my end, she ghosted me, leaving only sweet memories behind. With my heart broken once again, I took a soothing ride through a field of unnaturally blue flowers, thinking about what to do next.
Go and fall off a cliff.
Thank you, Dark Souls 1 Undead Merchant. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Oh, that's actually quite nice. Look at all the gentle lilies blooming in this place. Hold on, gotta take care of this first. Putrescent Knight is completely immune to bleed, frost, and poison, but extremely weak to Scarlet Rot for some reason. He's also pretty resistant to magic, slash, and pierce damage, which makes sense. Anyway, none of this info matters. He's just too weak to Holy, and this is what a full Shadow Sunflower Headbutt does to him. This is without the Physic Flask, and I'm not even expecting to face. Before you ask, no, aspect of the Crucible Bloom is horrible for this boss, since Putrescent Knight can ride all the way into the sunset before the skill's hitbox activates. With the Holy Boosting Flask, the Sunflower Headbutt is even more of a nuke, and a trade I'm happy to win. Let's see what the knight was guarding. Oh my god, she is the one. Yes, I will imbibe.
You must kill Mikilla.
Anything you wish. Right after I finish a few side quests. Yeah, I just gave up and used both Bloom and Sunflower. Bloom takes 3 to 5 business days to arrive, so not even Gaius' transition is safe to cast it. While Sunflower is a monster of a weapon, I'm sure we'll find a purpose for a late bloomer of a spell too. In the meantime, I picked up more scatter fragments near a sad, empty flower pot at the edge of the world. There, that's much better. After that, I proceeded to eliminate one final fiery obstacle on my way to Mikilla. For Mesmer, I specifically wanted to use the Sunflower. I had never touched colossal weapons in my casual playthroughs, and this seemed like a great opportunity to properly test one. Our Snake Boy here has plenty of big windows for charged heavies after his combos, and it was immensely satisfying to see the chunks of health my withered flower ripped out of him. In phase 2, Mesmer loses his mama's protection against Holy, so the split Holy damage of the Sunflower chunks him even harder. I smacked him a few more times, performed the worst snake dodge in my entire life, then ended him faster than I could come up with an impaling joke. Sorry, fire spears and mommy issues just aren't my cup of chamomile tea. Speaking of mummies, since it was Mother's Day, I decided to bring some flowers to dear old Matter here, all alone in this desolate, lifeless plain. Huh, the Sunflower staggers her in 2 charges. That's wonderful news. I hate this fight, maybe I can semi-cheese her with... Okay, sometimes it doesn't. Turns out if you misalign your attacks by a few pixels and miss her weak point, it does significantly less damage and requires another hit for a stagger. Unfortunately, I had to actually engage with her moveset. Oh, rather, her moveset got engaged with me but decided not to wait until marriage. On the bright side, I found a nice use case for our Bloom spell in this fight. After I ate her first space laser, as is tradition, the lock-on distance was just enough to use the orbital lasers of my own. You can also just call in an airstrike on your coordinates and let Meteor come to you. Although I have to warn you, if her children are out to play, Bloom will absolutely try and target them first, and you won't be able to lock onto their mummy. Overall, this was the second most frustrating fight of the run. Right after that putrid tree spirit, I hate this thing so much. Before we continue on to the third most frustrating fight, allow me to just let out some steam. I feel so much better now. I feel so much worse now. I made my way to Midra's mess without getting lost in the forest for once, took sweet revenge on Tiny, and visited my old friend Midra. He was having a bad day in the office, so I decided to cheer him up with a nice bouquet and a chat. How are you, big guy? How's the missus? My social skills that bad? Midra is a poise fight, so I went with a bit of a sunflower for the opening and Varre's bouquet for the rest of the fight. The bleed is always a treat, and I like how you can duck under some of his swings with the bouquet. Although I kinda disagree with this hitbox. I can clearly see that I was out of the fire here. After getting grabbed and bitch slapped back to the grace one more time, I didn't even bother with the sunflower and just used the bouquet, which worked beautifully, staggering Midra and proccing bleeds every once in a while. In the end, I fought fire with flower and won. I guess I didn't fight hard enough. For committing yet another cardinal sin, I got sentenced to death by staircase, cheesed another Tiny across the gap on my way back, engaged in some questionable bird hunting, then made my way to ladder. I considered inviting Nathan for this one, but from my past experiences, I know he's not the kind of guy to bring flowers to a date. He actually brings knives. So yeah, I think I'll swipe left this time. It's okay, who needs Nathan when I have my beautiful children? They poison, they face tank, and they occasionally body block my enemies. Such perfect kids. Other than that, it was double petals for poison and bleed, and poison flower blooms twice all the way. First try flower power victory, and in such arid conditions too. Seriously, there's too much sand in this place. How do you expect to grow anything here? Oh great, more sand. No wonder Trina wants you two gone. So, for our first couple of attempts on Rodan, I tried messing around with my flower summons and poison, but they couldn't survive long enough to be useful and just made Rodan's targeting unpredictable. Yeah, there's no way. Thankfully, I had just the flower for this job, the Flower Stone Gavel. Despite being a hammer, it does pierce damage, which Rodan is less resistant to. As for its weapon skill, Flower Dragon Bolt, I did try to play around with it at range, but I think it somehow borked Rodan's AI, making him loop the same attack over and over, and I didn't want that. Fighting him melee was just better, and it's always nice to get staggers in this fight, especially if you time it right. Overall, this ancient flower was great for Rodan, and the fight was surprisingly easy. Sure, I died several times due to my own mistakes, and I took quite a lot of unnecessary damage, but I felt like my training arc from my previous run truly paid off. To my surprise, I finally felt comfortable fighting Consort Rodan and his shiny backpack. Speaking of which, since I had fulfilled my promise to Saint Trina, I could now finally invite her on a proper date. Oh, I think she's gone. Why does everyone leave me in the end? Are my flowers not pretty enough? Am I not good enough? Oh cool, new hat! With the DLC fully complete, it's time to fight the final obstacle between me and the throne. But before we do that, I would like to take a moment to thank all the wonderful people who watched my first video here and subscribed to the channel and left comments. I frankly didn't expect this amazing level of support, and now I feel even more encouraged to do these silly videos for you to enjoy. So thank you so much, and back to Radagon. I made sure to blast him with the Ionia at the beginning of the fight because it's a nice big opening, it instantly rots him, and his first swing will go right over my head. Half the time. For the rest of the fight, I decided to go back to my roots and use our very first proper weapon, the Petal Whip. Guess I just can't say no to whipping a shirtless man till he explodes. For Elden Beast, I kinda wanted to see what the Shadow Sunflower Headbutt does against that monstrous Holy Resistance. And yeah, that's not happening. In the end, I went with the Flower Stone Gale, going for heavy attacks in melee and blasting the beast with Flower Dragon Balls whenever I felt too lazy to chase it. All was going well until... that one-shots from 50 vigor? It's okay, I got them on my next try with my very last drop of FP, and with that, I have beaten Elden Ring using flower power only. Playing around with all these different weapons and spells has been a lot of fun, and I feel like even those that are generally considered bad had a chance to shine in their own niche. Oh, and my beautiful children, of course. You did amazing, little guys. Don't let anyone tell you any different. Speaking of, Marika and I bonded over having a bunch of uncontrollable children, and after my whole disastrous dating history throughout the run, this relationship at least was off to a good start. If you enjoyed watching this, please leave a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. I have a bunch more fun Souls run ideas in the works, and hopefully the next one won't take me forever to edit. In the meantime, you can check out my previous video, which, if I didn't mess this up, should appear somewhere around here. Thank you so much for watching, and have a magical day!